So starting today, we're going to run through the different kinds of questions and issues people posted on our blog in response to Audrey's post at the beginning of the year. And we're just going to go through them in order that they were posted in the comment section. So the first question is, what fictional monster would we want to meet in person or not under any circumstances? Do we have any rules for creating such characters? Lydia Schoch posed this question. So go ahead, Bertold.
My answer to this would be the King in Yellow, which is the title monster or entity from Robert W. Chambers' collection of short stories. And it's such a weird and bizarre monster. And I reference this book all the time because I think it's very creepy, and it ties into one of my rules for creating monsters, which is leave them off the page by and large. Just tell the reader enough to make it scary and let them imagine the rest. That's one of, I know I'm the last guy to say here's the ironclad rule for doing something, but if I made a rule for creating a monster, that would be one, is leave a lot to the imagination.
Do you have any? Okay, so that's your rule for creating creatures, is leave a lot to the imagination. Okay.
Yeah. So the fictional monster, and I guess monster in quotes sometimes, but in this case it is, I'd like to meet, and I have to say, is the vampire Lestat. I was surprised when I thought about the question. By the way, Lydia, fun question, thank you. Because I was thinking more, well, what creature would I like to know more about? And if anything, Anne Rice gives you almost every exacting detail about that character. But I think that's maybe why, is because I read those books and I know the character very well. And I think it would be great to ask questions on, not, although, he's very egocentric, so it'd be his life, but really about the times he lived through, and lived in quotes as well. So that definitely. Would I not like to meet would definitely be, I'd say, a Medusa, because that would be a very short interview. or I was thinking even Godzilla. I mean, it's stomped next minute. The rules, I definitely, I've used that word now 3 times, but I feel very strongly to avoid the trope of, and this is true of heroes or monsters, with the one weakness, it's just overused, that you read about, oh, you have to kill the monster with this one shot or this one thing or this one object. I think most of fiction has gotten away from that a bit. When you read that type of fiction, horror, etc., there isn't just a one-shot deal, but it's every so often I pick up a book and there it is again. This is one weakness, so I would avoid that.
It's like the Smog, the dragon, and the Hobbit, right? Where you have this one little tiny hole in the armor or whatever. Yeah,
because the only reason why is because you already know what's going to happen just by that definition. If they introduce that early enough on in the story, what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
So whereas again, like the vampire stories, could be any number of things, it could be sunlight, could be chop the head off, could be whatever, stake in the heart. So it could go anyway. It could have a little surprise twist if you wanted, but the one little chink in the armor, there's only one way this story is going to end, if it ends positively. So.
Okay, well, the monster I'd the least like to meet would be anyone that wants anything or entity or whatever whose main purpose is to eat you or rip you to shreds. I mean, why would you want to meet that? Because you're not going to have a conversation with them. You're just, going to die. So, but yeah, the interesting kind of monster would be one that you could have a conversation with, or at least observe with a chance of getting away with it. So, and I agree with Berthold, the best ones are the ones that are kind of, they're not really there. So maybe you wouldn't be interviewing them, but you might be observing, like well, of course, the King in Yellow, you never really see him. You just hear things about him. And the way you get to, I guess, meet him is by going mad after reading this play that's, called The King in Yellow. So it's really kind of fun to think about. I don't know about, see, the good thing about all these things is they're not real, right? So you can kind of entertain yourself by thinking about them. The other entity that I find both interesting and terrifying are the ones that are sort of described in that Algernon Blackwood story, The Willows, because you never really see them either. You just have these two dudes camping on this island in the Danube with willow bushes around, and they see different things, and it's sort of just this creepy atmosphere. But in the end, it becomes quite terrifying. And I ask myself, when I go camping, which I haven't done for quite a while, I somehow always come back to that, even if there aren't any willow bushes around. But that is, to me, the most compelling sort of monster, is the one that you don't really see, and you're not really sure what it's all about, but it has this creepy atmosphere. So, and as far as rules go, yeah, I would say just describe enough to be disturbing, but don't talk about tentacles and stuff, because then you kind of know it's tentacles or it's, giant teeth or whatever. So that's as close as I'm going to get to rules.
I'm not really there's not a lot I can contribute to this, because I'm the biggest coward in the world. And I don't think I've read a horror story or watched a horror film since my teens, and my memory doesn't go back that far. So the only thing, if I was writing about a monster, I would give him or it or whatever one redeeming feature, so that you might have the feeling that you would possibly not 100% bad. Because I think if a monster or an evil entity is 100% bad, I think it's less realistic. But I can't quote any stories that I've read particularly. I was a great Stephen King fan years ago, but I haven't sort of got round to reading him recently. So as I say, I'm not really very helpful on this one.
Okay. I actually struggled with this one too. When I as I said in my email, I misremembered the first question. I thought it was something different, and what I thought it was something I was going to struggle with. And the way I'm going to answer this, the first thing, people might not think about this as a monster, but I would love to meet Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. I would like to sit on his branches and have a conversation with him. Another one that I think I would like to meet, preferably not involving a meal involving fava beans or Chianti, or however you pronounce it, is Hannibal Lecter of Silence of the Lambs. I would love to, I don't know, it just seems like that would be a fascinating, I'd want to make sure that I was close to a door, have him have all the gear on that he had at one point in the movie. But I think Hannibal Lecter would be interesting. The one that I thought of just now, as you were talking, that I absolutely would not want to meet is Pennywise the Clown from It. That to me is the ultimate monster, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Pennywise. So, and rules, I think you guys have all hit them. I mean, I think the don't give them this one vulnerability is, I think, critical, because like you said, you just kind of eventually realize as soon as that's revealed, exactly how the story is ultimately going to end. So anything else on this topic? Anybody? Okay, thanks for that question. The next one is from H.R.R. Gorman, and it is publishing on Kindle really easy? What is the process really like? And I'm gonna start with this one. I find publishing on the Kindle platform these days, when you're doing an ebook, to be incredibly easy. It's when you move to the paperback where it starts to get complicated. And there are some things that I don't do that make ebook publishing even easier for me, because I don't do a linked table of contents. I've never understood the value of that in a piece of fiction. And other people do, that's fine. But I don't do a linked table of contents for my books when I publish the ebook. And there's really not a lot of formatting that I found that you have to do for the ebook, but it's the paperback. And the last one that I published, it took me almost a week to get the margins correct. I kept having to, and even then, when I got a proof version of the book, the margins were still screwed up. I kept having to go through it over and over again. But and maybe it's because I just do this on Word. I know a lot of writers talk about how great Scrivener is at doing some of these things, and there are other things, platforms or services that can help. But I found the paperback printing formatting process to be very challenging, and maybe it's because I don't do it more often than once a year, so I forget a lot of the details. But every time I do it, it's like, okay, wait, tabs or indents, how big the margins have to be, and where do it's been a challenge. So in terms of how to describe the process, I'm not sure how to say that concisely. So if anybody else has any thoughts.
So just a question for you, Mark. When you say you have problems with the margins, you talk about the text margins rather than the graphic cover, or
text margins.
Okay. Yeah, I just to say I use their template. I start with their template, but I'm really, really good with Word. So I start with their template, and then I know how to tweak some things or find things that are screwy. But yeah, they do have a template which already sets up left and right page margins,
So but with their template, how do you load your Word document into that template?
Well, I start with the template. I start with the Word template, and I write in there. Or you could just cut and paste, text. But
okay, so you can download the template and then type
the Word template.
Okay, I'll look for that.
Try that. There still are some little glitches, but the margin stuff is the last thing I had trouble with. Sometimes with section stuff would drive me crazy, and that always has in Word. There's like invisible sections, and you can't get rid of them.
Yeah. With my last novel, the biggest problem I had is the top and bottom margins. And I thought I had it set up right, and I got the proof copy back, and the top and bottom margins are like, huge amounts of white space at the top and the bottom. And it took me, like I said, days and days to figure out how to get it right. So Bertold,
similar to what Richard was saying, the template I find to be very helpful going off of that. And then once you create it from there, now it's been long enough that I've done this that I've sort of forgotten, but yes, that's my experience is similar to that using the template is very helpful as far as doing an ebook. I've never actually done a physical book, which I keep meaning to do that, and I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet.
Right. Well, I'd say it is easy to publish on Kindle with, just to the ebook. And formatting is pretty simple because you don't have to worry about page numbers or headers and footers or sections or any of that stuff. And even the linked table of contents isn't that, it's sort of tedious to do it, but once you get the little moves down, it's pretty simple, and you just kind of repeat the same thing as for as many chapters as you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. The print book is kind of problematic. And that's where I wrote a post recently about Smashwords and draft to digital merging. And apparently draft to digital is working on a thing where you do your ebook and then they will format a print book for you from your ebook document. They'll do it. And I kind of wonder, really? So since I'm getting close to putting out yet another book, I might, and this merger is supposed to happen in March, I suppose I could join on with draft to digital anytime, but I haven't done that yet. So that's another option. And how well it would work, I don't know. I think it's still in beta testing for them, but that's really tempting. And they'll even do your cover for you. Like they'll create a print cover based on your ebook cover. And that's another thing that it seems to be new and wonderful. So I kind of hope that works out well. But yeah, in terms of print formatting, it's true. You kind of forget from one to the other about all these details. And I've never used the template, although I've heard other people say it's the way to go. So we'll just see. But it seems to be a lot of options. You can go totally do it yourself, or you can hire someone to do it, obviously for money, or you can use these automated processes that seem to be coming up. So yeah, I mean, it can be tedious, but it's definitely worth doing.
If we're doing this to help people, you know, that they've sent in the question, I've learned through trial and error for the ebook. First of all, well, this is what I do, type the document up in Word, but only use hard returns. And when you get to the a new area, obviously the first word is not indented in a section, or when you change scene or beginning of a chapter, then you go down, when you need the first indent, you use the little arrow at the top, the little inverted arrow, move it along to 1.5 or 75 or whatever you want it. And then that, in other words, basically you're putting no extra hidden code in, which can actually stuff anything up once it goes to Amazon. The second thing I do is, having got all that, I then do the page, the title page, all the dedication, all that stuff. And then I do a table of contents. I've found trial and error how to do that. It is tricky, but as Audrey says, once you've done it once and you've got it right on that chapter, then, you know, you could just repeat the process. And then what I do then is I email the document to my Kindle. And I check it out on my Kindle to make sure that it looks neat and tidy, and that I haven't got spaces or things haven't crept in that I wasn't expecting. I'm very spoilt. My other half does my print formatting, and he has been coming up in leaps and bounds as each book comes out. And we've now got my name at the top on one side, separate, and the title of the book on the other side, separate, which looks, I think, very professional. And he's a great perfectionist. He's got a whole notebook of little notes that he's put down, so many centimeters, so many inches, so many whatever, for the gutter and the outside margin and the top and the bottom. And the last, I think, 4 or 5 that he's done for me, when the proof comes through, it's pretty much perfect. It's just amazing. But I haven't even attempted that because I'm stupid and thick and I couldn't manage it.
Okay.
I know the first book I put out was back in 2016, I think, and I know I had some trouble. Let me back up and say that if you're just printing the Kindle, it is very, very easy. It's just one click, right? I mean, but again, it's how does it look? And if you've got any kind of complexity, table of contents, whatever, you know, you have to be very aware of what that output looks like. Well, the first one, I remember having some trouble with that. I remember, you know, porting it into the Kindle format, and, you know, it just didn't, you know, look correct. I had to keep tweaking a little bit, but that was back then. Now, the last one I did was last year. They have this desktop application that you download, and it gives you a Kindle reader in it. So you could actually go page by page and look at everything and see if the format and everything is exactly what you want. And it's a little smarter now. It actually will go and look at the, if in Word you created certain styles, it'll go look for those, and you could, you know, match or whatever, or even tweak those. So they seem to have beefed that tool up quite a bit. That problem I didn't have a problem too much. My least, unlike you, Mark, my least difficult was the paperback.
Wow.
The only
Maybe I
one
need to use the template.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, use a template, and I have some knowledge. It's also graphic, you know, work. So the cover wasn't that bad, but I did run into a lot of problems with the hardcover, and that's because with the paperback, you're working, you know, your cover, you're working with, you know, a certain dimension of the paperback book, and you go past that by some amount, and they cut, right? But with the hardcover, there's going to be a wrap that goes on the inside. So that has to be a lot more careful. And I kept screwing that up and getting an error, which wasn't really worded well. It was beta trial. So, and it kept throwing me off and took forever, and I needed help there. But once I got that fixed, it was okay. So I have now 3 versions of the book. covers, and actually 4 now with the Audible. So I have all these different cover versions, but I do have 2 different versions of the text for the for the digital and for print. So you will need to do that because that as you were saying, keep for the version for digital, you want to keep it simple, right? So it's less work on you and it's less work on the application.
And in fact, when you go in to put your book up on Kindle, it gives you the option to look at it on the phone, on the Kindle Fire, a tablet. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to mention that if nobody else did, because of this question, what is the process really like? I think for both the ebook and paperback version, you do get a preview on screen, so you can actually see what it looks like page by page. I don't know, do you guys actually go through every single page before you click publish?
I do.
Most of them. Like I do. It's like if I'm in a chapter that page after page is looking good, I'll go quickly, really quickly.
Okay. And the other thing is they do have a cover creator. So if you don't have your own cover or someone who can make a cover for you, you can do it. I did it for 2 of my books. One was just an ebook, so that was relatively easy. But if you don't use their cover creator, or you don't have a person who's knowledgeable and skilled in the graphic element of creating covers, and the like you said, the amount of space you need, and Kindle provides information regarding the measurements and how you're supposed to do it. Every time I look at that, I just think I'm so grateful I've got someone else doing that for me now.
Even with the visual templates they provide you, they can download and illustrate all. It's still, I still end up doing a little bit of have a calculator nearby, and again though, from my former job, I've had experience doing that, so it's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah.
Right. I do my own covers lately. I don't need to, but somehow it just feels right to do it. I don't know. Anyway, I use this thing called Canva, and I don't think it was originally meant for things like book covers, but they've since acknowledged that that's there, and you can. I think what I do is I get that template from Amazon. Once I know how many pages and how wide the spine is and all that stuff, I download that template, and then I incorporate it into this Canva design. And if you do it just right, you can kind of use the template and be able to see it if you set your transparencies right. And then when you're all done and everything's positioned properly, you can just kind of whisk the template out of there, because you obviously don't want that showing. And then you can readjust your transparency, and there's your cover. And it's so far has worked for me. But I know the last time I had anything to do with a print thing on Amazon, I wrote a blog post about this. I had a lot of trouble with the margins. Like they seem to have gotten really picky suddenly about these italics transgressing into the zone where they shouldn't go. So I'm really hoping it doesn't give me a lot of grief when I go to do the next book. But anyway, we'll see. But yeah, print is the big challenge. Ebook is pretty easy.
I've been considering doing a book that was going to have images in it, and I know that's challenging and that's complex. It was just a little idea I had, but it was combining food and a fiction. But I would need pictures of the things, and I know people have done it. People have done it on both Kindle and on on Amazon. But I know that's a lot of effort, because that's the part when they give you all the information, I kind of skip. Well, I'm not doing that, but it seems like a lot is there. Yeah. So I'm going to look into it at least. And then if, the idea I have really germinates well, I'll pursue it. It's probably going to be an expensive book then, because, the print process is all different.
Yeah. The next question is from Liz Gauffreau. And it's, what do we think of the rules of marketing? And I'm not exactly sure how to answer this question, because I'm not sure what the quote unquote rules are. So
I could take a stab at it.
Yeah.
Which basically, my feeling is there's a lot of advice out there about how to market your book that is designed for people who are, it's written as if the person is an established author. Like, oh, run ads and, do promotions like this. And it's like, well, Stephen King can put out an ad and say new Stephen King book and get
10 million people.
Exactly, like 10 million people. But for an indie author, you basically have to throw out all the rules that were written for the big name authors. It's completely different. But the good news is I think it's a lot more fun because marketing in the indie world is more about making connections and, basically building a reader base from scratch through meeting people and sharing and getting to know one another. So I guess I would say, if there's a rule for marketing for indie authors, it's ignore the big rules, the rules that involve like running ads or anything like that, and instead focus on personal and smaller things. It's sort of like that saying that all politics is local. There's sort of something similar going on when you're an indie author, I think, is that you're working from a smaller group that you're building up.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, the rules are you have to be in social media to some extent. You have to have a platform online, whatever that is. You have to have an email list, what I hear. You have to be where the readers are, not other writers. Now, do I do any of this? No. The only platform I have is my blog and, just the ebook stores, whatever author page and stuff I have there. I have never done an email list. I hate advertising. And besides, these ads on Amazon and other, I'm not on Facebook, so I have no clue about those ads. But from what I read about Amazon ads is you have to know this weird thing about, you don't just pay for an ad and it shows up for some length of time and then disappears. Yeah, it's all about click-throughs and this and that. You kind of guess how much.
You designate how much you're willing to pay per. I don't remember exactly how, but I had the same issue. I did an Amazon ad and I figured out a little bit of it, but basically didn't sell a single book as a result of that ad. But yeah, there is this weird thing about you pay a certain amount per bid or offer something, and then that determines how frequently your ad is going to show up on people's Kindles.
Yeah, it's kind of like gambling in a way.
I don't know, but
I did a little bit of that. Way back, I got a little extra money. I thought, oh, why don't I try some Amazon advertising? And I did learn. It was, it could have cost me a lot of money, but I just, put a short ad. But I learned what you're supposed to do is you come up with all your terms. So you list all those terms out, and then you put, they give you your estimate bids. But then you're really supposed to check and keep rechecking and see which of those terms are getting the click rates. And that's where you want to boost your bid up to grab more time, because that's what's attracting people to you. And then if you do that, and I did notice this, I did get some sales after that, but I was running very short on funds. I don't, and I should point this out to anyone who's listening. I'm not writing at this point as a career. I write for the love of it. I would love for my love of it also means I would love for my books to become popular, but it isn't for the financial reasons. So yeah, I do the marketing with a grain of salt, but I did figure that out. If you are going down that route, that's what you do. You do your list of terms, try to think of as many you can, and then you have to get rid of the terms that are bringing in nothing to you, or at least put your bid super low and keep, targeting the ones that are getting the click-throughs. And, they have all those statistical tools for you to look at.
I tried everything, and I did exactly what they told you not to do. I just went for everything that I could, the ads, the LinkedIn, the Pinterest, yeah, I think I'm on Instagram as well. Chat on Facebook, Twitter. I paid people to tweet for me, etc. The golden rule that I'm told now is on social media, it's 20% buy my book, isn't it wonderful? This is what it's all about, and 80% networking. And I have built up a bit of a network, I guess, but I've now stopped going on Twitter and Pinterest, and I've lost the passwords anyway most of the time. And I'm doing Facebook ads at the moment, only Facebook ads. I've had some hysterically funny chats with Facebook marketing experts, one who stuffed up completely after trying to get me to do this super duper carousel thing that went round and round and round. At the moment, the last 3 months, I got help from a friend in America who sent me, click this box, tick that box, do this, do that. And I have possibly quadrupled my sales in the last 3 months. Whether it will last, I don't know. But I did incredibly well last month. I did pretty well in December, and touch wood, I'm doing very well this month. For me, it's not brilliant. It's not up there with Stephen King and all that, you know, Mark Dawson and all that lot by any means. But for me, I'm doing very well. But I'm going to wait till they start dipping, because they probably will, and then just put up a different picture on there. It costs, but I'm still making a profit. I'm not making a huge profit, but at least I'm making more than I'm paying in ads. And mailing lists, I do feel, are very important if you want to really connect and sell books. I've been working on my email list now for 4 years, and I've got 2,400, which isn't very many. But I have very few unsubs each month now, and I think people are reading it. Whether it leads to sales, it's this blind throw your bread out on the water and see if anybody, see if a duck appears. It may not, but and I just do one newsletter a month. I used to blog twice a week. I've stopped that, but newsletter once a month. I give a book away free with voracious readers, and I get up to 15 new signups a week, possibly 20. And I'm in Prolific Works, which also gives away one of my books for free, the first in the series. And then what happens then is I put the link in my newsletter. So I think people are not unsubbing because they're seeing Prolific Works. Oh, I can get more free books. But on the other hand, my page views have gone through the roof. So what's working, I can't tell you. I just know that I've just cut it down to that, and that's where I'm sticking at the moment.
The ads that you were mentioning, those are Facebook ads?
One Facebook ad. I did one of these free Facebook courses with Brian Cohen, and every day he said, well, put another ad up. Now you have what you're prepared to spend each day. Say it's $5. And for $5, they will spend that $5 if they possibly can, but they won't show it. Say they show it to 20 people. If you say I'm going to spend $100 a day, then of course they'll show it to 1,000 people or whatever. Okay, but he kept saying, put up another ad, and it dawned on me that every time you put up another ad, it was either $5 for each ad, which meant they'd still only show it to a few people, or you ended up spending $100 a day. And then you had to measure, as you said, Richard, the click rates and the conversion rates and all that. And I'm still not very au fait with that.
I know Carrie Rubin, who's somebody a number of us are familiar with, she has said she's tried Amazon and Twitter and Facebook ads, and the only one that has worked for her is Facebook. And
well, I tried Amazon. I gave up on that. Yeah.
Well, and I looked into Facebook, but I have to create a business website in order to be able to do ads, and I just haven't got around to that. You can't do ads on Facebook just with a personal Facebook account.
No, they become Meta as well.
Sorry.
So they become Meta now, and I keep getting things in my news feed in Facebook saying so and so has gone on Lucinda E. Clark's page and commented. And 9 times out of 10 I can't find it, and but readers are talking to each other on that page.
Yeah.
You know, is the
Yeah.
series any good? Is it worth getting? One person said I didn't like it very much, but I was able to say to, well, not all books are for all people. But
Right.
I do think it's actually created a bit of what's the word I want? When people know
Buzz.
about you. Yeah, a
Buzz,
little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Richard?
So just can't point to say your Amazon links or something. You have to
No.
have a, oh,
At
Okay.
least the way, yeah, because I actually, a nephew of mine, without my permission, signed me up as an administrator for a business page that he created as a joke. And so when I tried to set it up, it kept automatically trying to link to that page. It's like, that's not me. And I told him, take me off that page, but now you have to have a business page on Facebook to be able to do ads. It wouldn't link to my personal Facebook account. Anything else on any of these topics before we go?
just thank you for the submitters.